We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Good morning and welcome to the relaunch of the Friday Farcast, Far Fridays. This is Robert Phoenix. I'm your host, your guide, your navigator through all things wild, wonderful, woolly, and weird. Yeah, hold on a second. I've got to do one thing. Hold on. I'm back. I'm doing my show remotely. Why am I doing my show remotely? Because my kid is sick. That's why. He's been sick for 3 days. He started to be sick on Wednesday night and not getting better. And he only gets better when he throws up. He can't hold anything down. And, you know, I mean, here we are. We're living on the front porch, really, of Fukushima. You know, all this radiation is being spewed in our direction on a consistent basis. And, you know, as a parent, as a human, it's troubling. It's a troubling feeling, wondering whether or not your kid is got, you know, some sort of radiation toxicity coming from Fukushima, because he tends to be sick fairly often. It's not because he has a crappy diet or doesn't get enough exercise, but he throws up a lot and he gets a lot of headaches. And the last 3 days have been nothing but throwing up and headaches, and it's really it's disturbing. So I've spent the last 3 days just trying to, you know, get him right. And as a result, I'm doing my show remotely. And so here we go. Hi, how are you? It's Friday the 13th, and we all know what Friday the 13th means, or I think you do. It is the death. It is the memorialization of the death of Jacques de Molay and the Knights Templar who were slaughtered in the south of France. We always kind of go over this material on Friday the 13th. And so they were taken out by the French, and at that time the French-Italian Pope, and slaughtered because they had a lot of money. They had too much money, they had too much power. They were a threat to not only the church itself, but also to the crown of France. And as a result, they were taken out. I believe the year was 1309, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty sure of that. Let's just do a quick check on the internet here, so my facts straight. Jacques de Molay. So let's do. Jacques de Molay. Here we go. Let's see. There he is. Jacques de Molay. Now it says here that he died on the 18th of March in 1314. That's not my recollection of the story. So it was Friday the 13th in 1307, not 1309, and it was King Philip, who was the Pope at the time. The King of France at the time, and then Boniface the Eighth was the Pope, and they went in on Friday the 13th in 1307, and basically took out a bunch of Templars. It was a hit, and Jacques de Molay was one of them. And as a result, we have been given the bad news that Friday the 13th is a very unfortunate and unlucky day. It just goes to show you that who writes history and who tells the tale of the deceased and how it's framed is actually pretty interesting. And it gives us an insight into how symbols, how dates, how images, how they come together and influence our reality in ways that we're not even aware of. So is Friday the 13th really unlucky? I mean, how many times have you ever really had a bad Friday the 13th? I think I might have one. And I'll tell you the reason why I had a bad Friday the 13th is because I was really negative that day. I was totally negative. I don't know what happened, but I was certainly participating with the energies. I was co-creating with the energies. I don't know why I was angry. Maybe I was angry because I was poor at the time. But anyway, that was I can clearly remember having one bad Friday the 13th day, but I got into it. I got into the Friday the 13th thing. I got up on the wrong side of the bed. I had a shitty attitude, and that's why I had a bad Friday the 13th. This was years ago. This was in my 20s. So, knock on wood, we're going to cruise right through today and have a good Friday the 13th. It's positive. Let's make it a positive day. So I don't know if you've noticed this, but the big headline item for me over the past couple of days, I'm sure most of you who follow the news, if you do follow the news at all, the big headline item is that George Zimmerman was arrested. Now, once his lawyers walked away from him, you knew that was it. His cover was gone. He had some fairly high-profile lawyers, and I don't know. I think that they realized, or somebody called them up. Somebody talked to them and said, "Hey, look, we're going after the guy. It's going to be bloody, and you may just want to get out of the way." And they probably did. They probably said, "You know what?" They probably got a phone call from somebody in a really high place, and they said, "Thank you very much. We're out of here." So, what does it mean now? Well, it means now that there's a group of people who have been mollified for a short period of time. And when I say short, it could be anywhere between 6 to 8 months. And these are the people that have wanted to have this event go to trial. Now, the grand jury wouldn't touch it, which is interesting. The grand jury would not go into this at all. And maybe that's just an effect of the legal system at work. Maybe the grand jury said, this is not our arena, so we're not going to get into this. But they wouldn't touch it, so they came back to the local prosecutor in Sanford. By the way, have you seen this woman? Have you seen the picture of this woman? She looks horrific. I'm not judging her beauty, but there's a quality about her that is grotesque. I mean, she looks. There's something very, edgy and macabre about this woman. It's like, oh boy. It's like what, how are people's physiology changed over time by what they experience and what they know and what they participate in? It's got to change them. It's like no wonder people do Botox and have plastic surgeries because their souls are distorted. Anyway, I'm not judging the woman. I'm sure maybe somewhere in there she's probably a decent person, but on the surface, wow. She looks like a mutant. Anyway, so they've got him now. They've got George Zimmerman, and they're going to have him until this thing goes to trial, obviously, and maybe longer. So the supporters of Trayvon Martin and the people that want to see justice come to light are being, again, mollified for the time being. Now this is a temporary fix for now. And what we're going to see with the Zimmerman trial is we're going to see something. This thing is going to go on for days and weeks and months, and the trial coverage itself is going to be fairly intense. And it's going to continue to be in our consciousness until there is a verdict rendered. And even when there is a verdict rendered, it will be in our consciousness in a very big way. And if George Zimmerman is found not guilty by a jury of his quote-unquote peers, there's going to be trouble on the streets of America. I'm telling you that right now. There's going to be trouble on the streets of America. We are rapidly approaching an event horizon where if there are a number of incidents between now and the end of the Zimmerman verdict, or the Zimmerman verdict, the end of the trial, that it could get really hairy and really ugly if they say, hey, George Zimmerman didn't do it. If a jury of his peers said George Zimmerman acted in self-defense, or based on the definition of the stand-down law in Sanford, Florida, or Florida in general, he did what he did. And we don't see anything other than that based on all the evidence. Now, what do you think is going to happen after that? Because here's a group of people who have been really, pushing hard for their version of justice. And if that doesn't take place, we're really on the precipice of something challenging, deeply challenging. So it's going to be important to see what goes on between now and then in terms of how we frame racial incidents. It's interesting. There was these two guys who were just arrested. I believe it was in Tennessee, and they were arrested because they had killed a group of Black Americans. We're going to see more of that. I'm telling you right now, it's going to come out. These events are going to come out. They're going to be promoted. Some of them will be real. Some of them won't be. Some of them will be false flags. Some of them will be programmed kills. Some of them may not even be real at all. Because, as we see with the media, what the media does, they will create their own news. They'll create their own events. And they'll create their own events in concert with other people in order to shape and twist and contort our perceptions. But it can be. I don't think George Zimmerman's trial and the verdict is going to be a win-win for anybody. So if George Zimmerman does go to jail, if he's found guilty, well, certainly a large group of people will be pacified, and they will feel like there has been justice served. But what if George Zimmerman was acting within the letter of the law? That's going to be determined. And I think what has to take place, now that he's in the legal system, and the legal system is not the most fair or just system on the planet. I mean, look at what happened with O.J. Simpson. Everybody knew O.J. did those murders. Al Callings, by the way, confessed to Keith Richard that O.J. did it. This came through a friend of mine, Ken Goffman, who used to be the editor of Mondo. Al Callings bragged to Keith Richards that O.J. did it. And so we had O.J. Simpson go free. And everybody knows he did it. Everybody knows he did it. And what happened? People were dancing in the streets. So the legal system isn't always more recent. Who doesn't think Casey Anthony killed her kid? Right? And yet the legal system exonerated her. Now she's, by the way, Casey Anthony's counsel now representing George Zimmerman. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. So we're dealing with something very touchy. Very, very touchy. And it's out there. It's in the event horizon. And it's going to be the George Zimmerman verdict. And the ramp up, the drama, the friction, the fuel. Get ready. You're going to see a lot of Al Sharpton over the next 5 to 6 months. You see a lot of Jesse Jackson. And their job is to stoke the fires of this thing. Because what we know is that there's nothing better than a divide and conquer strategy. The Obama and Biden administration, they're at it again, this time with women. What they're doing is they're pitting women. And they're pitting women against each other vis-a-vis the parties, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And Biden said, he came right out and said, there is a war on women and women's rights. And it's all framed around this contraceptive chaos and contraceptive disorder that was whipped up a few months ago. And a strategy. It's a strategy. And it is right out of Saul Alinsky. This is Alinsky 101. Alinsky 101. What they did is they went after the morality issue. They pushed on the morality issue. Why? Because Saul Alinsky realized that nobody could ever live up to their morality. That we were human, that we'd always fail, and we'd always fall. So they pushed the morality issue around abortion. They found the issue, and then they froze it, and now they're into the polarization game. And they're trying to get women. They're trying to get women to polarize against the Republican Party. And the message is that if the Republicans are elected again or reelected, you're going to be wearing burqas. You're going to be wearing burqas, and you're going to be getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to make your husband coffee and breakfast. And oh, by the way, if you have a child and don't use birth control, which theoretically you'll be getting for free now, but if you don't do that and you have a child, just forget having that child removed. Just forget that. We're taking that right away from you as well. We're taking all your rights away. The right to not only terminate a life in your body, but every other right too. You're going to be reduced to the sniveling, weak, disempowered figure that skulked around and did everything that the man in the house asked them to do prior to the pill and prior to Betty Friedan. Now, if you want that to happen, you go ahead and you elect a Republican. That's the game they're playing, okay? That's the game they're playing. And women, of course, they don't like that. Don't tell me what to do. You don't tell my body what to do. And you don't cross that Rubicon with them. No way. No siree. So, and I've seen this, I've seen this on Facebook already. I go to Facebook now to take the temperature more than anything else. Somebody's passing around. Look at this great quote that Barack Obama had about women's rights in 2005. Wow. And it's like, to me, the whole thing is just one big mind fuck. And the good thing though is that while I was able to see sort of this pass around on Facebook, on the story on Yahoo, where Biden was talking about the war on women's rights, the comments were actually very astute, pretty sophisticated, and people are understanding now that they're being played. I would say 8 out of 10 comments were like calling Biden out on the bullshit. So the good news is that people are getting it. The bad news is that as they get it, there's going to be more and more of a fractious attempt to marginalize and polarize people and issues. It's like, okay, that's not working, let's try this one. Okay, that's not working, let's try this one. Okay, that's not working, let's try this one. And all of a sudden, they're just segmenting society up. Just segments. I guarantee you what's going to happen in late spring, early summer. The next threshold for the divide and conquer will be the gay rights issue. Okay, so let's put it on the table. There's going to be the race issue, which is already fomenting with Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman. It's simmering. It's on the back burner. It's cooking. Okay, now you've got the women's rights issue with contraception. It's cooking. Now you're going to have the gay rights issue and gay marriage, which is cooking, by the way. That's happening. The fourth one is going to be immigration, and they're whipping that up. Okay, so you're going to have 4 pots all in the stove at the same time, and this is what they're cooking up. These are the big ticket items to divide and conquer, and then what they want to do is they want to get as many people divided and conquered as possible. Now, do you think it matters whether Mitt Romney or Barack Obama is president? It doesn't matter at all, to be honest with you. If Mitt Romney is elected president, what you're going to get with Mitt Romney is pure, unadulterated fascism. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the video when Mitt came to town. If you watch that video, you'll see Mitt Romney and Bain Capital in action. I'll give you a recent example of what Bain Capital does. There is Bain Capital owns Cumulus Radio, and Cumulus Radio is buying. They're buying up stations from smaller radio networks right and left. They recently purchased a bunch of radio stations from Susquehanna, and Susquehanna apparently was a decent company. They sold out to Cumulus. Cumulus is related to Clear Channel through Bain Capital. Bain Capital is they're the money arm for Cumulus. So in this area, what did they do? They grabbed the #1 sports station and they grabbed the #1 news station. Both of them by Cumulus now. Cumulus, by the way, also owns Coast to Coast Radio with George Norrie. So they are like the Fox Sky for radio in this country. They're the Fox Sky for radio. They're amassing a network, and when you have a monopolistic hold on a media and a network, it's dangerous. One of the first things that Cumulus did is they signed Mike Huckabee. And if you know anything about Mike Huckabee, it's pretty conservative. All right, I've got people on the phone lines. There's somebody with a 760. I don't. A lot of times when people call in, they just like to listen. So it's hard for me to determine if they're just listening. So I saw a 760 and they dropped off. And now here's a 208. They've been on for 24 minutes. They've been on here since the show started. Let's bring them into the mix. I'll get back to Cumulus, and I'll tell you my story about Cumulus on a local level and what it means for the big picture. Here we go. Hello, you're on the air.
Hi, Robert.
Who's this?
This is the gardener in
Gardener.
the theocratic nation of Idaho.
What's going on?
And what I've lived the last 6 years is everything you're talking about.
Yeah.
On today's show. First of all, I want to say with your son throwing up, stories about your son always tickle me because he sounds so much like my son, who's now a big teenager. Icy cold ginger ale to a slushy degree. It will quell his stomach and stop the vomiting. 2 or 3, have little sips, little slushy chunks until he can hold it down. But it will quell the stomach, and any ginger ale will do.
Well, good.
That's
good.
That's my tip. I've gone through it. A lot of times they do this through growing spells, and with the little boys especially, but the big boys do it too. Everything hits them in the gut and the stomach cramps, vomiting. But oftentimes they'll do this for 2 or 3 days and be pretty sick, go to sleep good finally, wake up an inch taller.
Wow.
So that's my mothering tip for you today.
Well, thank you, Gardner. I appreciate that. That's.
But no, really, I always keep some on hand and hide it so it doesn't get guzzled. But every time, we all do it, it works.
Well, I must have been picking up on that because I got ginger tea at Trader Joe's, but I told him that I might have him drink some ginger tea today, and he looked at me like I was going to poison him or something. It was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. How old is he?
He's 8.
Like 7 or 8?
Yeah, he's 8.
Yeah, that's the age for lots of stomach turmoil, and been my experience. But no, Trader Joe's has a really good little Schweppes, the little small bottles. I've missed Trader Joe's so much up here. That's one of my biggest things I miss from California.
It's
but
like,
anyway,
what would we do without Trader Joe's, man? I mean, it's just like...
Well, what you do is you go without, and every time the closest one is in Nevada, from southeast Idaho, Spokane, and you go without when you have company come or you go down there, you get everything you want, you need for the next few years. That's what I've done. But I do miss it. I don't know why they don't have it in theocratic states of Montana, Utah, Wyoming, Idaho. Nobody knows Idaho is a total theocracy. And what that means, living in a theocracy, it's a great big secret. It's true. I've experienced it. My life has been a micro of this macro on every level for the last 6 years.
So when you say theocracy, what do you mean by that? Are we talking Mormons? Are we talking born-again Christians? Are we talking Freemasons?
No, it's totally Mormon.
Okay.
We're talking the entire school districts, the entire county. When the prophet died, how many places do you know of that lowered the flag at the courthouse and the post office to half-mast?
Yeah, not many.
We're talking, when you live in a theocracy, where they require blood death oaths of secrecy, they supposedly stopped that in 90, but it's every lawyer, every judge, every accountant, all the teachers, all the banks, all the bank managers, everybody with vital information on you. Then there's the other people. They have an LDS, employment, availability. You do not work. Everyone has access to your data. You vote for the judge at the same stake center he's president of with a box, putting your vote in a box with slots big enough to get fingers in. You cannot get a lawyer that is not of the brotherhood, sisterhood. I've worked in the public schools. They do address each other as brother and sister, blatantly, and you have no recourse. They consider Jews to be Gentiles, which my Jewish friends get a big kick out of hearing. We're all Gentiles, and it's kind of like that one Jewish thing where we're all, all Gentiles are cattle. You can lie to them, cheat them, kill them.
Right.
That's the same attitude. The Mormons
within the Mormon Church.
themselves.
I've heard about this. Yes, that they have a very similar philosophy.
Oh yeah, it's like a mixture of extreme Islamism, patriarchal fundamental,
right?
Islamism and Judaism, and Catholicism with their data collecting. They do Bain Capital is also known as the Mormon Church. The companies they own or heavily invested in or have CEOs are of such an incredible magnitude, it just blows your mind. Swift Trucking, Ryder Trucks, American Express, Wells Fargo. So anyway, we moved here to Paradise 6 years ago, my now dead husband and I. And unbeknownst to me, I'd never heard of any of this kind of stuff before. He and I were targeted individuals because of our assets, paid off assets, which were just normal, working class assets, and his health. I have experienced the legal system, law enforcement, domestic violence, medical through Kaiser, and that blatant and very stupid corruption, lying, theft, fraud, forgery, title companies, insurance companies. I've been through them all. I have been stripped of every asset, and I have hardcore pursued it. I've dealt with the feds, the FBI. We've had guns stolen, bank accounts ripped off using his ATM after his death. These people act like their hands are tied. And when I started in on the process when my husband died, the one phrase I heard every day, regardless of how hideous my experience was this happens every day.
Wow.
This happens every day. Because I did think it was a local Mormon thing. No, this happens every day.
Yeah.
Millions, billions, estate thefts stolen. They do already put your people to sleep behind both your backs to cut their medical costs. That happened to us. My husband is not resting in peace. Stolen fully insured vehicles, heck, deal with it, lady. So anyway, I've gone this journey, and with a big blanket of support all over this country and world, online support. I've used astrology. I've made hundreds of charts, and knowing, like going to court, say, and knowing the results of it. So that's just been an incredible education to me astrologically.
Yeah.
Having a child in this system, they are totally shunned, the Gentile kids. Mitt Romney, the Mormon theocracy is running this country to an incredible secret, which is their way, totalitarian. They're already extremely embedded in every layer of government already.
Yeah.
Discretion is their number one tool, or their number one best thing.
Right.
So Mitt Romney, well, he's already, come out many times about what a warmongering chicken hawk he is, and his sons too.
Yeah.
They have no intention on fighting any war, any trouble. Anyone that gets us shut down and locked out, there's one huge group of people that are supplied for years that can hunker down and sit this out. If Yellowstone doesn't blow,
right?
We're a mile from hour from Yellowstone. I've been very well experienced. It's so oppressive, you can cut it with a knife. It's very gray, beige, bleak, and the highest antidepressants, mind meds usage in the country. So they're not happy campers. It's very, everyone's got free access to your house. I have asked, why isn't there a Trader Joe's here? And I called up Trader Joe's and said, is it the alcohol thing, even though Mormons sell it?
Right.
And they said, no, you need to petition to get one. And I said, well, let me start petitioning. There's no health food stores around, which is kind of shocking.
Right. Where do you live?
Walmart has.
Which part of Idaho do you live in?
In the southeast corner, the Fremont County.
So what's around you?
Our border.
Are you like near like the Dakotas or?
No, I'm up at the edge. All of southern Idaho is totally Mormon. We are bordered. I'm an hour away from Jackson, Wyoming, and an hour from West Yellowstone in Montana.
So Montana and Wyoming.
With the Tetons, the Grand Tetons,
Got
right
it,
at my window.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite an unusually energy place.
What drew you and your husband there?
Well, he had found our property to retire at online, and it's a beautiful RV park. So I get people from all over the world in here in season. And he never had got the experience. His health was very controlled. He died 3 years ago. But his goals and dreams were for us to live here and run the park, and he would stay in California and work, building gas stations for USA. He built a really cute one in Richmond, and that was one of his last builds right there in Richmond, near you. But yeah, we found it online. It was a fraudulent deal from start to finish. 6 years later, I'm still picking up the pieces. But the biggest thing is seeing the failures on top of what I had experienced with our lives, specifically, the failures of all these big bad boogeymen to do their job, and the ridiculous, totally stupid people running this show. I mean, they're so dumb, they're totally unprofessional, lie like rugs, lie in writing. I've got documentation up to my neck. It doesn't matter now because no one will ever ask for it.
Right.
So this has been, I've been down in the deepest, darkest fear holds of not wanting to live on a planet so full of truly soulless people exposing themselves to me every time I come out. I came out of that. I survived it, and I've got a better attitude. I'm looking around, and just this is where they'll have us all with fraudulent insurance people. They can throw your home into foreclosure anytime they want to.
Yeah, what insurance? They have a big insurance company. Which one did it? Is it Prudential or?
It's Farm Bureau. The Mormons owning one. It was Beneficial. Beneficial. Yeah, I keep up with Draken, who just slays me. But he's a church member, so he's not able to see it, even though he was a convert, able to see it as kind of like an innocent party thrown into a theocratic, totally blatantly theocratic situation. And and my son, who was in middle school and is now in high school, what he's gone through and how the other kids accept this and deal with it. Their small school population availability for dating or even being friends is cut down.
Yeah.
There's probably 20%, 30% non-Mormon kids. And it used to be a lot worse. They run these people. They steal your property and they run the people out.
So yeah, I tell you it's just such an old story. I mean those tactics go back thousands of years. It's just it's like take your land and then take your assets and see. Oh,
widows and children, go for it. I had one winter, and we've had this year we had no snow, which is Fukushima is always on my mind. Last year when it was raining, it rained till past June.
Yeah.
Past solstice, I remember. I had lots of people in from Portland, Oregon, after Fukushima, and it was raining the same there. And every time I'd be out in the rain, my kid was cross-country running. I told him, and he's always poo-pooing me for my conspiracy theories and how I am, but he quit running.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is poison. I can just taste it and feel it.
Yeah.
And it's coming straight across from Portland. Boise is having heavy neonatal deaths. I talked to a neighbor. He told me his wife, who works here locally, 6 girlfriends at work, their young daughters, 6 babies have died in utero this year. And
That's
that
a lot.
doesn't happen.
That's a lot.
We had no snow this year. I'm just like, we've got a straight shot right here. We have had no snow.
Mm-hmm.
Totally abnormal weather. Everybody acts like, well, that's Idaho. And I'm like, no, it isn't. We didn't get snow anywhere. So, yeah, looking at your kids who've all been raised with, it dawned on me a while ago, our children, especially the teens and the 20s, all their lives they've heard 2012, the end of the world.
Yeah.
And bless their hearts that they keep going on. They're all still teenagers and little kids. And give it to them as much as you can, because this is what they live with, and it's got to have this huge psychic downing effect.
Mm-hmm.
At the back of their heads, 2012. I'm not even graduated from high school yet. I'm only in 5th grade.
Yeah.
It's the end of the world. Wonderful, Mom, Dad. So I felt that last full moon.
Mm-hmm.
I was in federal court. Mercury had just gone direct last week. All of these experiences are totally new to me. I am totally the victim, so I have absolutely no fear of the processes now.
Mm-hmm.
I have never done anything wrong, and that's exactly how they like you.
So Gardner, what can we do? How can we support you, or give you what do you need? How can we support you in this? Because it sounds to me like you really are kind of alone in all this.
I am.
What do you need?
But you know what? Okay, this is the other side of the coin. If this is what it took, because I have seen every depravity people are able to do, with rosy scrubbed cheeks and white, starched shirts, the well-dressed wax mannequins down in Riverside County that abused, tortured, stole before, during, and after my husband's death, including the doctors and nurses at Kaiser. I've seen this. I've experienced this. And what it did was throw me into the universal flow.
Uh-huh.
I thought I had faith already, and I didn't. And that really shocked me. I have had legions of angels visit me here. The spiritual support is the only thing that has saved me. And every time I lose it and get afraid, I've had very many fearful moments. One year we only had temple timber from the building of the local temple that the construction crew that was in here, they brought all this used temple timber in. My son and I were cutting it up with a Sawzall for heat. And I went to the bishop of my property and told him what was going on and how the insurance people were treating us dishonestly, which is, they swear an oath for those temple recommends. And I told him, who was their bishop too, and that we had no wood. We were shaking my retinas out, cutting up temple timbers 8x8s for wood, and I was lucky to have them. They did not. My father, who was a Mormon, was, flipping his head in horror over how these are not men, these are not leaders. The last thing, we do not want America to close out under a Handmaid's Tale theocracy.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what's coming our way.
Yeah. So your dad's a Mormon.
Yeah.
So were you raised?
Yeah, I've been familiar with them. They're all around, but they're very discreet. Nobody knows, and they will not do business with you if they can help it.
Right.
They will do. They're very smart, organizationally and planning, data mining, data keeping. There's the Spanish Inquisition, the Jesuits, the Catholics have nothing on these people. That's what they really seem to really get into. And spiritual force, prayers. I know that's what's kept me alive. This is how deadly and toxic and they cut off my legs or tried to nonstop. My husband is dead from this. And this happens all the time, and nobody knows it. And every bank manager, go ask your bank manager, hey, have you ever heard about, someone using someone's ATM after death and stealing all their money? Oh, yeah, it happens every day.
Yeah.
And in this country, if you are financially killed, you might as well be killed.
Yeah.
If they can kill you financially and get you that way, you might as they don't care if you're in the gutter. They probably laugh and love it when you're in the gutter with your good kid. So anyway, I've been fighting the good fight. I've got spiritual forces that are unbelievable here.
Mm-hmm.
I have a full view of the Tetons, where the great White Brotherhood supposedly went from Shasta to here, St. Germain, all those guys. I've discovered portals on my property.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very magical existence. That and my faith and my connection to the universal flow of God is what has kept me a few steps ahead of this material stuff that I disdain so much anyway. They couldn't have picked a worse person to do this to, because I hate it all anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't let them steal it all and get away with what they've done. It is a micro, macro. I've seen them face to face.
Mormonism is
keeping our health.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we've got Fukushima coming through this portal of its own from Portland, Oregon, through Boise. Thank goodness there's a huge mountain range between us and Boise. But those people everyone's getting it.
Yeah.
The ocean's got it. We didn't have any snow this year. They have deep aquifer pumps for these potato fields and barley and Budweiser growers and all these people out here. If we hadn't had 3 hardcore winters, we would have no water this year. It's serious.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most. So yeah, they have the Trayvon and I've got a 17-year-old, and I had my talk with him. It's like, you guys don't see yourselves as how other people see you on, not defense of Zimmerman, but they do stupid things. They're 17.
Yeah.
Just walking around with a hoodie. Yeah, it's like, you don't know how you come off to other people. And 2 or 3 or 4 of you, it's intimidating. Don't be slouching around, in the dark. Keep your heads up. Keep your face open. We are in a police state now. This is what I tell my son.
Well, it's not yet. And it's not just the overt police state, meaning, big brother. There's little brother, who will, get on a cell phone and call somebody.
Oh,
you know
sure.
What I mean?
Yeah.
You're getting back to the whole Mormon thing. I mean, they are the first New Age religion in this country. I mean, their reformed version of Christianity is kind of the New Age version of Christianity. And this whole concept of Moroni, who visits Joseph Smith, and Moroni is kind of like in some ways channeled entity, And Joseph Smith was a Freemason. Okay, let's just be honest about that. He was a Freemason, and he used many of the precepts of Freemasonry to form the foundation of Mormonism. And the Freemasons ultimately got pissed off at him, and they cut him off, literally at his waist. That's how he died in Illinois. And he died in a place where it's a Freemasonic hotbed. So the Freemasons, they did Joseph Smith because he stole their secrets and made his own religion.
Now,
essentially.
Now, I heard, living where I live, which has been, it was Catholic, and it was a wild and woolly Catholic investment. I've had really old people in their 80s, 90s come in here and say when they were kids, the actual Chicago mob. What people don't know, too, is through here, Idaho side was Harriman land. The other side of the Continental Divide in Jackson is Rockefeller land, in the Tetons and everything.
Right.
This has always been a Rockefeller, Harriman thing. So they'd have the Chicago mob and mobster cars, the black mobster cars in the 30s, drive through here somehow up to these big lodges in the mountain, up by the Montana border, and hole up. So this town was a Catholic, wild and woolly town. It became so prosperous, the Mormons started giving free bus tickets in Salt Lake, saying, get up there and populate that. Oddly enough, the big prosperous commerce side of town burnt down, and then it became all Mormon. But anyway, I had this old man come in, and his grandfather had been one of Joseph Smith's bodyguards, and they, of course, have some elaborate theatrical name. Brigham Young sent all of his bodyguards off on a ruse mission, and Joseph and his brother got killed, and his wife Emma and family never went with Brigham to Utah. And so I said, I always found weird gaps in that story. And I said, so are you saying that Brigham Young had Joseph killed? And he said, yeah. That's what his great-grandfather's story was, that all of his hardcore bodyguards were sent off on a ruse mission by Brigham Young, who then reversed to Utah. So it's a very we've had the decision. We've had a lot of people suggest join the church. They'll leave you alone. They eat their own. Just if you've got what someone wants, or just for the thrill of the take, they will eat. There's no protection in joining. It's something that is so discreet. I've had people that were high in the military come through and say, wow, I didn't realize this was so Mormon. And I'm like, yeah, it's a big secret. And there's, people pop off with things like, well, my son's a colonel in the Army or Air Force or whatever, and he says, Dad, they could take over the military if they wanted to. And I'm like, who, the Mormons? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, they're embedded very strategically, very organized.
Well, that's just like the Masons. It's the Freemasonic model. I mean, it's the same. It's the same strategy. It's the same, model of infiltration. Kennedy talks about this in one of the last speeches he ever gave. That was. This phone is going to ring now. Oh, we got it. So Kennedy talks about that, about a secrecy so far-reaching and powerful.
Wasn't that Wilson even?
What's that?
So when I've done a lot of study. The Department of Agricultural head during Truman, I think, or Eisenhower, later became a Mormon prophet. And his only other business association group he belonged to was Farm Bureau. And I'm like, Farm Bureau, what is this Farm Bureau and Farm Bureau Insurance? And I've had so much interaction with all these people who are dumber than dirt, so blasé with their lying, so unprofessional. It would be comical if your life's assets weren't at stake and it wasn't so offensive and annoying. But anyway, Robert, astrologically, I feel definitely like I've surpassed. I've gone over the hump.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an 8 degrees Pisces.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at today's things. There's a big sun and moon square with Pluto, Aries. Venus is exactly squaring my sun.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Pluto at 9, Capricorn just in gear, sextiling my sun. I feel like I'm over the biggest hump of the trials I've been through for the last 6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them more hardcore than others.
Well, you've got Chiron on your sun too, right? I mean, you got that major Chiron sun conjunction.
Uh-huh.
That's huge. You know,
yeah.
Chiron.
What can you? I feel like it's okay, regardless. They can't kill me. They can't get me. I'm already done. You know, I already died. When my husband died through such filthy, sickening, material obsessed reasons. So I think I died and I resurrected.
Mm-hmm.
I went in the hole for so long after that was so hideous, all of it, and I feel like I've already died. You can't kill me. You people
that would
are
be Chiron on your sun for sure. I mean, you know, it would be the ability to really, because we know what is Pisces. I mean, for me, Pisces at the 12th house is always about. It's about the afterlife. It's about God. It's about going back to the place where we dropped in from, right? And so when you have Chiron conjuncting your sun, essentially what you're doing is you're merging the most kind of powerful and potent aspects of your personality and your being, which is the sun, with the shadow and the unclaimed and the shamed and you know, which is Chiron, that part of you that you have to, you know, really tend to and work with to overcome, you know, the stigmata of enculturation. So you've got two of those things coming together in your chart, and because it's in Pisces, it's transcendent. So you're approaching, and it's not. So Chiron, I think, is at 5 degrees now, and it's going to be dancing around your sun.
That's at the top of my chart. My MC is the top of my chart is 546, I think.
So Chiron's right at your midheaven. Chiron's at your midheaven.
Yes. What I'm afraid of is Neptune. When I saw Neptune, I wrote this on your column, your blog. When I saw Neptune like 10 years ago, when I was still a normal Trader Joe's loving, homeschooling, healthy mom, I went, wow, I wonder what Neptune's going to do when it hits my, you know, Aquarius Mercury at 12 degrees. I have gone through the biggest thing of liars, deceivers, betrayers. I don't think anyone was overlooked.
Well,
and it totally shell-shocked me when it got off of my Mercury. It's still in the 9th house. It's hovering right up there. What do you think it's going to do when it hits my sun with Chiron?
Well, I think by the time Neptune hits your sun, Chiron will be past your sun. Because for Neptune to get to 8 degrees, I mean, we're talking about 3 years. Neptune's really slow.
Yeah.
By that time, Chiron will have moved on to like 15, 16 degrees Pisces. So my theory about Chiron and Neptune right now is sort of the 1-2 punch. You know, Chiron is opening, exposing, tenderizing, revealing. And basically getting people to be okay with their vulnerability. And then Neptune, again, this is just my theory, comes in and backfills and brings in I believe Neptune in Pisces ultimately is positive. That's what I believe. That's my belief. It's positive. But because of where Chiron is now, what happens is we get exposed to the negative manifestation of Pisces. We get exposed to all these things you're talking about, which is deceit, illusion, temptation, projection,
now
betrayal.
that was when it was an Aquarius.
In Aquarius, it was similar, but not similar. The whole Aquarius thing was very different. Because in Pisces, what we're talking about here is the most fundamental relationship we have with the divine. It's faith, right? I mean, this is really what you're going through as a Pisces,
right?
And what collectively we'll be going through. It's about Aquarius is not about faith. For me, if you look at like Chiron and Aquarius would be blowing the lid off of like The Secret, right? Which would be a very Aquarian kind of manifesto. So what happens with The Secret? Well, you get somebody like James Frey running around in the media espousing the love of The Secret. And what does he do? he goes down to Mexico and kills 4 people in a sweat lodge. I mean, to me, that's like Chiron and Aquarius. It's like here is a really dark manifestation of the New Age. When we had a lot of, in fact, if you go back and you look at, like, if you were to go back in time and look, say, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, even when I started my blog, right? And I started my blog in 2008, and in earnest. And if you go back in that, and around 2008, what were people doing in terms of, pulling back the layers of what I would call the quote-unquote Luciferian conspiracy, right? What were they doing?
Right.
It was really nascent at that time, but it was starting to happen, and I was doing it, and there were other people that were beginning to do it. Dave McCowan was doing it on the whole.
Oh, I love Dave. Yeah.
The
thing is, the trippy thing is with my story is I was living it and doing it, living it, and I've got it all with a couple of hundred charts where I, through the charts and seeing what was going on astrologically, and then living it and experiencing it with they're being revealed. They were revealing themselves.
Yeah.
It's not like we were just through our experiencing them were they revealing themselves. Because they're getting real blatant now.
Yeah, it happened to me too. I mean, I have my own version of this. In 2008, actually, if you go back to 2005, 2006 and 2007 in my life, really those years for me were really intense. And I was going to talk about
naked under the light, huh?
Well, I was going to talk about this later in the show, but Joni Mitchell has decided to give up her recording career. I'm a huge Joni Mitchell fan, and she's decided to, get out on the front lines of Morgellons. Joni Mitchell has Morgellons. Oh. And in 2005 and 2006, I began to experience Morgellon-like symptoms in my life.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was driving me.
Have you had the fibers and all that creepy?
I didn't have the fibers. I never had the fibers, but I had
itch and the.
I had other stuff going on, and it was literally driving me insane. And
I'm surprised I don't have Morgellons really.
Well, you don't.
When I first saw that years ago.
You don't have the genetic marker for it. Because
is it the RH negative thing?
Yeah. If you have RH negative, you probably don't have the. Morgellons was specifically designed to target certain haplogroups, and it's genetic warfare. That's what Morgellons is.
Now, are you RH negative?
No, I've got Anunnaki slave blood. I'm O positive.
Oh.
So
Okay.
But the one thing I'll tell you, the one thing I don't have is I don't have the cancer gene, and I know that.
Uh-huh.
So, if I'm going to be, if I'm going to check out, it's not going to be due to cancer. It'll be something else. But I experienced the whole Morgellons thing. So what happened? I got intensely into researching it and trying to, get better. And, it was very challenging. And it broke up my marriage. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I went through, so two things happened to me, and they were synchronous. I was up one night, and I was typing. It was late at night, and I felt something akin to like a tuning fork hit me right in my third eye.
Uh-huh.
And the waves from that tuning fork spread to both sides of my brain. And it was, and I've had spiritual experiences. I've meditated. I've had my Kundalini activated. I know what that's like. This was not like that. This was not like that. This was synthetic, and it felt weird. I didn't dig it. And the first thing I thought is, I've been hit. Somebody hit me with a scalar weapon. That's what it felt like. So I went to bed that night, and I woke up the next day, and I felt a little strange. And I tried, and I dropped my kid off at school, and I went down and I hugged him. And as soon as I brought my head up, I got really dizzy. I went, whoa, what's this about? So I went home and I tried to get, alkaline rich, take a bath, did everything in my little bag of tricks. And then later that day, I wound up having a very severe bout of vertigo, so severe that I would stand up and I'd vomit. And I went to the doctors. I didn't, I was like, I didn't know what was going on. I just had this experience 24 hours later, but who am I going to tell that to, right? And so I go to emergency, and it was just like out of that movie Jacob's Ladder. That's what it was like. And the doctor she was Asian, and she was just cold as ice. She treated me with contempt. It was just freaky, absolutely freaky. And even the nurse who was helping me, she'd taken on the demeanor of the doctor. And
it's like that nowadays too.
And I said to her, I said to the nurse, I said, why is the doctor treating me so coldly? Why is she so inhumane to me? I said, I'm not well, and all I'm getting from her is I'm just getting nothing but extremely bad vibes from this woman. Why is she doing that? And when I asked the nurse this question, I could see this little switch flick in the nurse, and all of a sudden the nurse remembered, oh, I'm human. Maybe I should be, interacting with him a little differently. And she did. She changed. It's like I reminded her that she was a human and not some fucking robot that was being controlled by the emergency doctor on shift. And I left, and my life went downhill pretty quickly after that in terms of my relationship with my wife, my kid's mom. She wanted no part of me. This was clearly a very I experienced a very direct impact on my life and on my psyche. And
so was that like 06, 07, 08?
This was 2007 going into 2008. And
those were intense times. A lot of people died then.
And it took me, I'm a fighter, and I'm a Scorpio rising. I'm not going away that easily. And so I did my own research, and I figured out my own protocol to deal with what was really debilitating. I mean debilitating vertigo. And so what I did is I found the best cranial sacral therapist in the East Bay, and worked with her. I had insurance at the time, which was great. And then I found a little substance called Depronel. And Depronel is a smart drug, also known as a nootropic. And I had done some research on it. It's illegal here in this country, but you can get it in Canada, you can get it in Europe, you can get it in Mexico. And they give this to people with Parkinson's. They give this to people with Alzheimer's. They give this to people with brain trauma in Europe. And what it does basically is it rebuilds your brain cells.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and so
now I had a third eye encounter. I've had a couple of them. I started taking melatonin, and I would notice it affected my eyes. They'd be real gunky or real sticky, or noticeably affecting my eyes the next day. So I experimented with the dosage and took it down, and but I had a couple of experiences. One was where I think I was meditating. I don't think I was asleep, but it felt like a spring-loaded shade all of a sudden flipped up right on my third eye window. And I felt a breeze of air flow through my third eye. I felt it, and
That's good.
it shocked me so much in that meditation. I kind of came out of it, but I came out of it going, could it be that easy? Could it be all that it takes? All of a sudden, everybody's who's capable of it, third eye opens like that shade, and
The problem
that tripped me out. I was really working on that, and I'm like, okay, this is definitely melatonin related. I had a few, but always the third eye opening, and some, where it's like I could see it. It was a little square window,
right,
and the air flowed right through there, and it felt refreshing. And I'm like, well, this is different. This is good. So this is the kind of like traumatic realization of how many amongst us are. I could never even go to solace with people before, and we've talked about what's wrong with these people. How greedy does one have to be before you're totally considered insane? The psychopathic, no empathy, lying for entertainment, et cetera, et cetera. I really do believe there's something trying to like take our souls, eat our souls, or there are so many of these people are just really husks that are soulless, and the goal is to turn us out to the other side through their abuse.
Yeah, so what essentially what happens is that we're talking about gangs, because...
Oh, yeah, and it's like the Mormon church. It isn't a church. First I went, okay, this is obviously, they're too organized. I mean, it's really, really organized.
No, it's gangs.
This is a government
gangs.
board. Somewhere along the line, but basically, bottom line, it is gangs, and I have been beset by 4 different factions of gangs, all, working either together or separately.
Yeah.
It's a gang time. And if you don't have a gang, if you're an autonomous person, I've experienced it with myself. Now, I've had a lot of help, on my phone. So I just, relocated here to beyond Neverland alone.
Yeah.
And yet I had much help all over the country with the earphone. Was like, do it again, do this, clap your hands, and do it again. In my ear, go tell them to leave. Against gangs, and I personally, physically dealt with, say, 20 humanoids at a time.
Yeah.
So we are very powerful. The smart soul people are very powerful. We can hold off these gangs, but it's exhausting. And I guess our gang's going to have to be the soulful type. And
our challenge is that we're virtual. We're you're in Idaho, I'm in California. There are people in the chat room that are in all parts of the country and the world.
Right.
And and what connects us is something etheric. What connects us is our soul network, right? I mean, that's because what we're talking about also is networks. And what happens is in a case like yours, you go into an area which is heavily Mormon, and somebody says to you, well, why don't you just join, right? And that's how, because I was thinking about this the other day, actually. I was thinking about, what do people do? I mean, if they're in an area, if you're growing up in an area, like somebody asked me, why do people join gangs? Well, and I had to answer the question. Well, you join a gang because you're in an area where people are, you're either going to be, beaten up, or you're going to be sodomized, or whatever that is. You got to have somebody on, protecting you in order to do that. And then what happens is once you're in the protection side of things, then you realize that there's also an economic model that has been built into the gangs as well to support themselves. So it's distribution, some form of racket that they can, run their gang scheme. And we're dealing with about 4 or 5 gangs on the planet right now that are all either working together or they're working on their own gang mission.
Separately, I mean, if you look, but colluding when it's convenient, and they do turn on one another. There is no honor amongst thieves and gangs. Yeah. And if you are involved, I come from Southern California. I have worked construction a lot of my life, and I've worked with, serious gang members on my cruise. And a couple of times I'm like, if I made a few phone calls, I could have some people up here that would totally scare them beyond shitless.
Well,
but then you owe the gang. I know how that works. It's like then yeah, I don't want to be beholden to gang members of any kind.
If people want to understand how this works, watch the movie Battlefield Earth with John Travolta and Forrest Whitaker and Barry Pepper. It's based on the book that L. Ron Hubbard wrote, which launched him as a sci-fi writer, not as an avatar of another American New Age religion. But watch Battlefield Earth, because the whole model, the whole psychopathic model is laid out, and the movie's terrible. It's so terrible that
that's what I heard about it.
It's really compelling on a terrible level, okay? But what you'll find in the movie is the psychopathic blueprint, because the characters, right, the lead character or the race that invades Earth are called the Cyclos. So Hubbard was talking about this. And Hubbard's no saint. Hubbard was possessed, as far as I can tell. But the Cyclos are the aliens that take over Earth. And the Cyclos game is leverage. And if they have leverage, they can basically, do what they want. But they're always trying to get leverage, not only in their own lives, but against each other. So they're working together to strip the Earth of gold and enslave the humans, but at the same time, they've got their own internecine conflicts going on while they're working together. So it's all in that movie. The danger with Romney is that he's the head of a Mormon gang, right? I mean, he may not be the head, but he's
not the head. He's a golden boy.
Certainly, he's a
front man.
A big front man. So we look at Romney. Who is one of Romney's best buddies? It's Benjamin Netanyahu, who's the head of another gang. So what we're talking about.
I just heard that. Well, yeah, I mean, but the bottom line is these gangs are all, I don't know if they're possessed. I don't know.
Well, I think it's interdimensional.
Because I encounter all these people all the time going, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with them?
It's
There's
interdimensional.
Real big
They're not
missing.
human. They're not human. It's an what my sense is that there's an interdimensional form of possession that takes place, and it robs these people of their humanity. Some of which, by the way, theoretically is actually cultivated, and there's theories that monoatomic gold allows people to hold greater levels of interdimensional possession. That's one theory that's out there, But yeah, I mean, we're talking about this is spiritual warfare. This is what we're involved in right now. It's not.
I'm immersed in it in a very magical piece of property, which my latest thing. I thought I was on top of my game. I was really working. When your homeowner's insurance can refuse to investigate a righteous claim, tell you have no claim. Then they keep the claim open so you're unable to get any other homeowner's insurance for 2 years. Then mortgage or servicing, they call themselves the servicers, Wells Fargo, provides you with their own insurance, which was, in my case, $600 additional a month for nothing. I struggled with $1,700 a month payment for 3 months, and I couldn't do it anymore. I've had hundreds of thousands of dollars stolen from me. Very blatantly, a lot of it admitted. Some arrests have been happening, and got some good people pushing. I had one great man, retired DA, tell me, and this phrase, he said, when you tell people your story, and this is all legal people and investigative people, did he have an appropriate attitude? Because the appropriate attitude is horror, righteous indignation. I'll help. Did he have an appropriate attitude? Once I got that phrase in my mind, I become very sensitive, and it started swinging my corner. more and more, where more and more had an appropriate attitude to let's get on this. And this is so cut. And I'm like, I've got it laid out on a silver platter for you people. We've got stolen guns. So, you know, it's like I lost a lot of my natural fear of, say, the FBI, people banging down your door to get your gun. These people are such slackers. They're so lazy.
Well, they're lazy.
I have no respect, no fearful respect of them anymore.
Well, they're lazy in regard to something that they're not invested in, right?
Well, that they have to put out for, they receive nothing in return.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Now, if they're motivated to do something, trust me, they're not lazy.
Right, and they're not stupid.
Right.
They'll tell me, I'm so sorry about your husband, I'm so sorry about what happened, but we can't do anything unless you've had $1 million loss. I said, look, the loss of my property will get me real close there. What do you got? You know, when are you guys going to move? And going through the loan mod, I mean, I think I've gone through every system in this country very intimately and have been very disgusted with pretty much everything about it. But so I went through the loan mod with NACA helping me, and I advise everyone to get in touch with NACA. They have saved my bacon through illegal lying moves of Wells Fargo. I can't imagine anyone.
What is NACA? Can you tell people what NACA is?
NACA is a nonprofit association to help people get mortgages, get their interest reduced. They work with all the big banks. The only problem I have with NACA is that, any encouragement for anyone to do business with these banks, they're going to call in everybody's home loan. I know this. It's in your paperwork. It's been in there since, the first one I read in the 70s. They have the right to call in your loan at any time, and that's a little ace card that could bring this country to full-bore freak out. Because I was like that, too. It was like, well, I don't know what these people are doing, but my mortgage payment's always been my first priority, and I've never been a day late, and blah, 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 blah. You don't have to be a day late if you want to call in your loan.
Right. No,
if they want to lie and
it's wired in the language. It's wired in the language of the loan.
Right. And I've known a few people that had that happen with vehicle loans where they had two, almost paid off. And when Wachovia got merged with, I think it was Wells Fargo, he tells me, and he's like the most honorable, decent person in the world, that they got a notice calling in their loan.
Right.
And it was just enough where two working, poor people couldn't come up with $3,000 a vehicle. On 30,000 vehicles, almost paid off. This is such hideous theft, so gross.
Yeah.
And he said they came and they took our cars. We could not come up with it. And I said, well, that's a hell of a racket. You sit there and wait till someone's got it almost paid off, and then you've got these vehicles still worth probably $10,000 or $12,000.
Right.
And take them.
Yeah.
Geez, what you talk about gangs or rackets? That was a pretty good one, and they were going out of business, so they didn't care about their customers.
So let's
happened to him.
Let's talk about mindset for just a moment, and then we're going to transition out here because I want to jump into some other stuff I wanted to talk about on the show today. But
okay.
One of the things, and this is going back to my story, and I kind of wanted to finish that up, is that when I went through what I went through, and I found Depernell, and what Depernell did really is it gave me, even though I couldn't really walk very well, I had an amazing amount of clarity, and that's what launched my website. So it was through being, kind of debilitated, and finding Depernell and finding my craniosacral therapist that you and I are actually talking today. Okay, because if that doesn't happen, we're not having this conversation. And so that took place, and then I eventually wound up getting a divorce. And one of the things that was happening at my house, and then later after I moved, was I was having a large amount of helicopters do figure eights over my property wherever I was living. Mm-hmm. And I was getting kind of freaked out, to be honest with you. And at some point, and I think that this was really a big thing for me, at some point I just said, fuck it, I don't care. I really don't care.
Yeah, I know.
And I had some other, like, I had some gaslighting stuff going on too. And
I've been there too. Yeah.
And I just said, screw it. And I'll tell you what, almost immediately after I said screw it, it stopped happening. Okay. So
now, regular people, even though their heart and their gut says, I believe that helicopters, bother other people, and because I've always been very open and I always get involved in these scenarios of extreme extremities. And I had a woman come in my park. Now, I have an RV park, so I have people coming and going from everywhere and of every kind. So I had this really good-looking, pretty healthy 30-year-oldish come in, and she pretty quickly told me that she was a UFO person. And I've never seen one. I've hoped to see one, but I've never seen one. And she said, oh, yeah, I go all over the West, and there's hot spots here and there and there, and it was kind of interesting. And she said, but these damn helicopters are after me. And I'm like, oh, great. Well, let's bring them right here to me. We had one, we had it for about a week. Great big, huge green ones, guys in camis hanging her leg out the side of the door, zooming right through my park. And she would take YouTubes of them and videos and post them. And I don't know what her thing was, but yes, I was inundated with great big, huge choppers where the cats are running under the bed and the dogs are barking and it's whooshing your whole house.
Yeah.
And what they were after her for, I don't know. And it was, making me pretty worried. I had a lot of problems going on already with my own gangs. And she moved on like everybody seems to. But I experienced that, and I'm like, okay, I'm always kind of, pretty open to everybody's experiences, and a lot of people know I am, so they tell me things and what they go through, and it's a wild and woolly little world out here.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that are keeping it to themselves that know and have experienced a lot and just move on.
Yeah.
And I just, and everyone tells me, just leave. And
well, why don't you leave?
To?
I've been in the chat room while you were talking, and one of the questions was, why don't you just leave?
Well, where to? And I'm like, okay, where to? And I mean, no, seriously, even a few years ago, it's like, well, my Mormon dad, everybody's telling me, get the hell out of there. This is truly a no-win. And I'm like, where are we supposed to go? Especially broke down, busted, and then I have given myself to the universe saying, please just direct me. This is not a life to be led. It's very miserable.
Right.
And I've climbed up out of that mainly with my incredible kid. Now, he is a 13-degree Sag, so this Pisces stuff will be hitting him with the square.
Right.
Now, it's interesting with my child, he was born exactly to the minute of my North Node. 13-degree Sag, like 39 or something.
So he's really part of your purpose in this life.
And his, I think it was his Uranus. His Uranus is in Capricorn, mine's in Cancer, or his moon is exactly opposite my Uranus in my second house. Yeah, and it's just, it's really fascinating how our children are so special.
Yeah, my son's Pluto is right on my Jupiter, and we share Libra moons together by 2 degrees. So my son and I are really connected. I mean, we are both in human design. We're both 2-4 projectors, which is fascinating That's pretty uncommon.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one.
So
now my son and I, we both have a Jupiter-Pluto conjunction.
Yeah.
Mine is in Leo and his is in Scorpio. About the same degree, 25-ish.
So if you mean a square.
Yeah, we each have the conjunction, but they square each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and his is in his fourth house, so we clash, but in a very related way. I totally understand him.
Yeah.
I'm working for him now. See, we got the momentum right before Fukushima to move up to Washington coastline, and we were both really motivated to do that, and it didn't happen. And then right after that, Fukushima hit. I think that's one of the worst places to be. California is not an option. I've lived there most of my life.
Yeah.
I had nothing but relief leaving. When Schwarzenegger became the governor, that year I started homeschooling. It started getting really weird politically. When that happened, it's like, we've got to get out of here.
Well, Jerry Brown is not much better. He's a Jesuit, and he's an alien, too. So it's...
Oh, yeah. Just seeing how rigged and blatant it is now, it's...
Well, they're on an agenda.
California out.
California is on the front lines of Agenda 21 right now. It's a huge Agenda 21 movement here.
Right.
Well, listen. What we're going to do here is we're going to send you off, okay? Back into your life in the on the wild frontier, staring down at supernatural forces of Mormonism. My sense here with you is that you're involved in a stand. You're in a stand. You're in some form of spiritual siege and stand. And I don't get a sense that you're going to leave there until you come out on top and on your own terms. And
well, as I keep telling these people, I don't want no trouble. I just want my money back. I don't want no trouble. I just want my money back with you people.
Yeah.
Or any of you people, or any people less visible. I've been reading his site for many years, and when it started out with Shining the Light, where you name your victims, you name your crimes, and some days with me it's everybody and every crime, and manifest the ball of light handed over to those who know and see. Ask them to shine it down on the perps, all the perps. That is so powerful, and I've seen it work. There's many things I've learned and I do on a regular basis. When I saw that movie Avatar, I'm like, welcome to my world. This is to tap in and keep into the flow is what has kept me sane and growing and back on my, strong and back on my feet. And their magic, their black magic they use, the bad powers they have.
Absolutely.
It's nothing compared to ours. It's in the good. It really it's powerless. And,
well, I'm happy that you came on to the show today surreptitiously and shared your story with us. And you can come on anytime. And if you've got any breakthroughs or any victories that you want to share with us, and I'd really would encourage you to do that.
Well, thank you. I've been encouraged to blog this from the beginning, which started 5 years ago, hardcore, where I contacted the cowboy lawyer in Jackson. I forget his name right at the moment. He won't touch this. He's had a Mormon trial in the IRS stealing property days in collusion with the government here, and lost.
Right.
I've contacted and been involved with many outrageous people, always outrageous characters. And I know, to me, what shocks me and horrifies me, and I can't believe, this has ever happened. Turns out it happens every day. Millions of people suffer through this.
Of course. course.
Yeah, and I am in my own private Idaho all the time. I like to be there, and but blogging, I've got to get it going. My now dead husband, and blog this, and what tools I've used to keep the straight and narrow soulfully, and I use plenty of them.
Right.
And the support and prayers. I've had so many twisty turnies of unusual amounts. Everyone's amazed I'm still here, physically and materially. And I'm not giving. It's too wicked to give into, and there is no place to run from it. In my opinion.
I would agree with you on that part. I would certainly agree with you on the second part. Well, listen, feel free to call back in.
Thank you so much, Robert. I've been wanting to speak with you. I get really worried that, I'm going to get the big Neptunian tidal wave and put me out of the picture or something, put me out of play.
Go watch Battlefield Earth. Go find that video or DVD. It's very instructive. Know thy enemy. Watch Battlefield Earth. All right.
Right. Well, thank you so much.
Well, thanks for calling in. And
I love your column. Anyone with any helpful hints, feel free to help me here. This is one of the darkest, dirtiest secrets. And if they get out in control as a front man, welcome to the theocracy and ask me, and I'll tell you all about how it is.
All right.
For a Gentile. And
will you hang in there, okay?
Thank you. I am.
Okay. Bye, Gardner.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Wow, that was an intense download from the wild and woolly front lines of property theft and more in Idaho with Gardner, who apparently found my website through Less Visible. She actually posts quite a bit on Less Visible on his comments page or on his pages with comments. So it's 11:37 here in California, and I want to thank her for showing up and calling. And by the way, if anybody else ever wants to call in and vent or talk, this is a good forum for it. And I know a lot of the people that listen to this show are very turned on and aware people, very conscious people, and we can, we don't necessarily have to have a marquee guest come on the show and talk about their latest book or their latest excavation or whatever. You can call in and vent and talk, and this is kind of what this is for in some ways. So, anyway, I want to thank her for that. One of the things that I was trying to get to or eventually arrive at before we took a very interesting detour to Idaho was this whole concept of, what's out there and what we have to look at, in the days and weeks and months to come, so that we can kind of begin to, get a lay of the land. And it's not about being paranoid. And it's not about worrying whether or not the sky is going to fall. But I do think there is some power in understanding on some level what these various scenarios are. And if we understand what the various scenarios are, in some ways, we demystify them and we disempower them. It's maybe you want to use the metaphor of like bringing the light, or or naming the victims, or whatever you want to ascribe to it. But the more that we can understand and kind of bring it into focus, the less power it potentially has over us. And so, what I was talking about was the four scenarios that would be potentially played out over the summertime, which would be the sex war, which would be a sex political war based on women's rights, perceived rights, all that stuff, demonizing the right and demonizing Romney. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if Romney or Obama gets elected. If Romney gets elected, he's just going to be. It'll be the boot to the throat. That's what Romney will be. And if Obama gets reelected, what's the last 4 years been like? Okay, so let's disabuse ourselves of any notion that electing either of these guys is going to be any different. The only thing that we can do is understand what their scenarios are, and hopefully disentangle from them in the realm of consciousness. I think that's our best shot, okay? Because I don't know a lot of people that are going to go take guns to the streets. I mean, I don't know them. Maybe they're out there, but I don't know them. So, what do I know and who do I know? What tools do we have at our disposal? It's about consciousness. So if we can call it as we see it, maybe even ahead of time, we diffuse some of it. So we've got the women's rights things, the divide and conquer. We've got certainly the race piece on the back burner with Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman cooking away. We have the gay rights issue, which I guarantee you is going to come up in a very big way. That'll happen during the summertime, and then the fourth would be immigration. That's another big piece because theoretically all those people are part of the Obama electorate. Now, is Obama in with Romney? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they're part of the same group. I'm not. But ultimately, would they agree to the same goal? Yes. That's my sense. So I wanted to talk about that and just put that out there and stay aware. We've got that scenario. We've got the Fukushima scenario. We've got potential scenarios with the New Madrid fault line. We've got Iraq, Iran, Syria. These are all things that theoretically we can hold and not hold to the detriment of it being huge rocks and weights on our lives. But I think on some level, we have to take these into account. It's incumbent upon us. If we are sentries of our own freedom and our own consciousness, we have to be aware of this stuff. We have to know. We can't just bury our heads in the sand. The trick is to not get stuck there and then move beyond that. That's the trick. It's like, okay, you notice you care, and then you move beyond. It's like at some point, I didn't give a shit about the helicopters anymore. And guess what? They went away. And what that said was that on a very interesting level, I was controlling a certain operational system of the matrix. That I had called those very dramatic pieces of equipment into my life. And literally doing figure eights over my place. And they don't do it anymore. And when they fly over or they fly by, I don't care. I don't give a shit. So we have at some level, that's where we have to go. That's what it's about. And we can control theoretically this matrix by not giving certain things power. But in order to get there, you have to understand those certain things. That's my formula. Maybe other people have their own formula. That's my formula. Understand the things and then don't give them power. Move on to something else. We don't want to get stuck in conspiracy theories. We don't. Because that is a downward spiral and not a fun spiral. Trust me. There's a lot more to living in life than churning, and I can churn conspiracy theory 24/7 if I wanted to. But it's like, it's kind of like, do it, undo the knots, and then move on, and then figure out how to live in a free and unencumbered fashion. That's really the challenge. Be wise like a serpent, and then move on. I was watching Blade Runner last night. I decided to watch Blade Runner because I was talking about Ridley Scott and Prometheus, and I wanted to re-experience Blade Runner. So I watched the director's cut last night, and it was fascinating watching that movie because the pace of Blade Runner it's almost like a dream. If you look at sort of sci-fi movies now versus Blade Runner, they couldn't be more different. I mean, there are scenes in Blade Runner there are very few takes or cuts between cameras. And the most action in Blade Runner is at the end between Harrison Ford and Rutger Hauer. But you compare Blade Runner to movies now where there's a cut
every 5 to 10 seconds. It's almost like the Bible of modern filmmaking. You've got to cut every 5 or 10 seconds, and you've got to have an effect every 10 to 15 seconds. And and the cameras are unsteady. I mean, this is the lens of the world in which we're viewing it. Blade Runner is not like that. Blade Runner is very dreamlike. But one of the things there's been this discussion on the site with some of the comments about what was the underlying theme of Blade Runner, because Blade Runner it was drawn from Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. But if you look at the credits, they don't even credit Philip K. Dick. So they drew up their own script. And the script with Blade Runner is interesting in that if you really look at the film, one of the things that they talk about is off-world. That essentially humans are leaving Earth. That's part of the Blade Runner script. And what happens is these androids, they wind up, going out into space and doing space mining and colonizing planets where the conditions might be hostile. But ultimately it's humans that are leaving the planet. And so somebody brought up, I think it might have been Juno on the site, that there is this undercurrent that the Harrison Ford character might actually be a cyborg. And that everybody pretty much on Earth might actually be cyborgs as well. That's one of the underlying themes, although it's never explicitly stated that Harrison Ford's character Deckard is a cyborg. And if he's not a cyborg, the love scene between he and Sean Young, who is a cyborg, that's just weird. Okay? That's just kind of weird because it's a intense seduction scene. And what he does, Sean Young, by the way, has been sort of connected with this whole MK Ultra, beta thing, and traumatization and James Woods thing. So she's kind of been lumped into that category. And so is Daryl Hannah, by the way, both of whom show up in Blade Runner as androids, right? As almost like Stepford beings, not just Stepford wives. It's funny, Daryl Hannah is an android and a mermaid. Interesting. And a badass, one-eyed, Eye of Horus, Illuminati assassin in Quentin Tarantino's film. Fascinating stuff. So anyway, there's this whole theme in Blade Runner of loving the android. Loving the android. Remember that theme now. Remember that theme. It started with R2-D2 and C-3PO. And the whole idea here is to get humans to start loving artificial intelligence. I'm telling you right now, it is the theme and the meme that is going to be very popular in the next 2 to 3 years. Loving the android. Because ultimately the android will become our jailers. They will become the security force, and they will become the right-hand guard of the power elite. It will be artificial intelligence. And so the whole idea here is to be able to embrace that and to love that. And Blade Runner was a huge step in that direction. When you look at a movie like Wall-E, that was a Pixar film, again, what is it about? It's about loving the android, loving the artificial intelligence. It's a kid's movie. It's getting kids wrapped around this whole concept that they would love a machine. And they made Wall-E more human than a human. The humans in Wall-E were inhuman. That's coming. And I'll guarantee one of these days, we'll be talking about android rights. We'll be talking about synthetic rights. It is going to be a conversation that we will be having. That is, of course, unless the sun does a really wicked electromagnetic pulse and takes out all the electricity and power grids on the planet, in which the androids won't have much to do at all. In that case, rights or no rights, they won't be happening. So the last thing I guess I wanted to talk about was this whole thing around Joni Mitchell. I was going to talk about that. I was going to bring it all together because Morgellons is a form of synthetic sentience. It's a form of synthetic intelligence, and people are being seeded with it whether they know it or not. With nanoarrays, polymers, they're changing the chromosomal and genetic structure of who we are as humans. That's part of what chemtrails is about, boys and girls. That's what's in the chemtrails, and it's altering us. So Joni Mitchell has decided, who's a Scorpio, by the way, she's decided to come out and be a full-time warrior for Morgellons. Good for her. I'd love to have her on the show. Huge Joni Mitchell fan. Always thought Joni Mitchell was way better than Bob Dylan. The only problem was that she was a woman and Dylan was a dude. I thought Joni Mitchell was every bit of Bob Dylan's equal and then some. If you look at her career, look at what she did musically, she's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Like her concerts with Jaco Pastorius and Wayne Shorter and Pat Metheny and Don Elias. I mean, those concerts are legendary. Legendary. Her relationship with Charlie Mingus. I mean, Joni Mitchell is a badass. Total badass. And I'm sorry that she came down with Morgellons. And now she's doing something about it. I'd love to have her on the show. Anyway, all right. I think that's it. I think we really went in a very interesting direction today, and I want to thank Gardner for calling in and going down that path, the path of Mormonism and gangs, theocratic and religious gangs. That's what we're up against, kids. That is what we're up against, and they're carving, they're sharpening their knives, and they want to carve up the assets. And they've been amassing wealth, they've been amassing information, they've been amassing numbers over time. And some of them are working together and some of them are not. That's what we're up against. And it's hard. It's challenging because we don't have that kind of support. I don't know about you. I'm just a single dad. I'm a single dad with a very small radio audience and a blog, and this is my support. This is my network, and you're a part of it. I don't know about you and your lives and what you're doing, but it's this is what we got. This is really what we got for now. Who knows in the future? But that's what we're up against. We're up against very sophisticated and very sharp and very organized groups with lots of money. Lots of money. But ultimately, at the end of the day, as long as we can retain the semblance of our biology, and that's really the key. Because if we don't have the semblance of our biology, if our pineal glands are calcified, or if there's a nanoarray sitting right behind our pineal glands, cutting off the charge between our third eye and our brain, right? Or if we've got blockage in our cerebral spinal column, we can't get these really powerful fluids up from our base chakras up into our heads, then our biology has been compromised, and so is our spiritual life. And that's all we have. We have our innate biology, and we have our souls. Now that's a big thing. But if we're being hacked, then it's hard. Now we got to figure out how to unhack it. And that's incumbent upon all of us. So it's Friday the 13th. Do something for somebody today pleasant. Open a door for somebody. Buy somebody lunch. Pay for somebody's toll going across the bridge behind you. Let's dispel this notion of Friday the 13th as being a negative day. Let's bring some well-deserved light to it, and then let's see if we can bring it into the weekend. Okay, I want to thank everybody for calling in, and we're calling in. The one person that called in. There were two people that called in, but one that talked. Also, I want to thank Gardner. I want to thank everybody in the chat room, best chat room on the internet. And that's it. Have a great weekend. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. Oh, yeah, I figured it out now. I remembered what I wanted to talk to you about. I wanted to talk to you about this Cumulus story and the local angle. I'll talk about it on Monday. It has to do with the local sports announcer, and it's actually fairly interesting. So here's your cliffhanger for the weekend. All right, this is Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to the Friday Fartcast with my guest, the Gardner, live from Idaho. And let's hear, how about some Great Big Water? What have we got with that? What have we got? 4 minutes left. Let's go out with Michael Lee Hill. Testing 1, 2, 3. Michael Lee Hill. I'll see you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend. Adios.